it's all Americans. I'm sorry. I believe all Americans have the right to adequate, affordable health care, and right now that's just not the case. The Center of Disease Control released a report. 54.6 million Americans were uninsured in 2006. Now, that number is only going to grow with the skyrocketing cost of health care. Also, people on both sides of the aisle and federal government have admitted that Medicare and Medicaid are going to be extremely difficult to fund with the rate that that healthcare costs are rising, and quite possibly bankrupt.
And that'll put a burden on the state.
Yes, absolutely. That's a huge burden.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts? What do you think we need to do? What do we need to do as a state? What do we need to do in general to ensure that those that have pre-existing conditions or can't afford insurance or don't have the ability to get insurance, what would your proposal be for the state of Illinois? Let's forget about federal for a second. What do you think Illinois should have?
Really, this is a federal issue, and I think that federally we're headed in the right direction towards some type of reform. And I would really be uncomfortable speaking about what we can do on a statewide level till we know what is going on a federal level. Definitely one thing that I would consider doing is, as far as Illinois goes, to make it easier for people to access health care by grouping groups of population together, such as small business owners. Instead of going out and trying to buy insurance for your 2 or 3 employees, or maybe it might be as many as 20, now you can group together with many other companies, small business owners in the state of Illinois, and now we get a group rate, and that drops the price significantly. Same thing would go for people that don't receive insurance through their work. Those people could be pulled together and get an insurance policy at a much cheaper, reasonable rate.
Okay. That's similar kind of to what the Chamber of Commerce has. They have a program like that today where you can buy insurance through a collective small business.
Yeah, and I would like something very similar to that, on a statewide level, so that we actually have many more participants instead of just, that local economy.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about energy dependence and independence. Illinois is an extremely rich resource state.
Absolutely.
We have coal throughout the state. We have more nuclear power plants than most other states. We have wind farms up in northwest here. We've got natural gas reserves. We actually recently read we have oil reserves in the south. We have ethanol and biodiesel with the soybeans and corn we grow here. And I guess the biggest question I have is in the 1980s we had about 40 to 50,000 coal workers. And because of federal regulation and basically the regulations, the coal industry here really kind of got shut down, and it moved really out west and east because our coal had more sulfur content. And everybody agrees that sulfur dioxide is a pollutant and it causes acid rain and all that. But I guess the thought is when you look at the state of Illinois, what are the things that we can do to become more energy independent? What can Illinois do? Like clean coal technology is a great technology. We're down to about 10,000 people in the coal industry today in the state of Illinois, so we're down 30 to 40,000 workers where we were 25, 30 years ago. I was wondering what your thoughts are on energy as far as the state of Illinois concerns, and what are the things that you would like to see if elected Lieutenant Governor?
Well, I believe that we should attack this problem from many angles. As you just stated, we have lots of natural resources in the state of Illinois, and also ones that aren't even really being harnessed too much yet, like wind. We recently put up, I believe we have 2 or 3 wind farms in the state of Illinois, but that's nowhere near the amount that we can have with the amount of land mass that we have. Also, that we have the central power grid going through Illinois, and we can tap into that central power grid and send our electric that we produce from the wind here in Illinois and other sources. Thermovoltaic is another great way, to all parts of the United States. That was one of the biggest concerns with the T. Boone Pickens plan, and why it wound up ultimately getting scrapped, is because they had no way to transmit that electricity to other parts of the United States, and it would have just been, it was way too expensive in order to be able to build all that infrastructure. We don't have that problem in Illinois. I do support new wells. As we can't. This is more of a federal issue. It's possible, as you said, we found that there's oil here in the state of Illinois. I do support drilling new wells in unprotected areas as well. I think that will help lower the skyrocketing cost of gas prices, which helps people, everyday people that are watching this video, and you and myself, because that really hurts the common man. Though when that price fluctuates up to $1 or $2 a gallon more, it really hurts the normal everyday people. And two, by producing more oil in the U.S., we keep our money here. We don't send our U.S. dollars over to foreign countries and foreign entities that use those same tax dollars or use that same revenue generated from oil to actually attack the American way of life.
Okay. All right.
I also support more nuclear power plants in Illinois. I strongly believe that there was once a stigma of power plants, of a power plant melting down, and there's still some of that fear remains. However, through modern technology, it's virtually impossible to have that type of accident. So it's definitely contained, and I think it's a great way to generate electricity.
Well, our current nuclear plants are, the youngest I think is 20 years old now. So I think it's definitely to the point where if we can get the federal government to open up the opportunities for businesses, I'm sure there's businesses that could see the opportunity to do nuclear. I actually have a neighbor 3 doors down. He's been working in Byron Nuclear Plant for 20 years and been pretty safe. He doesn't glow at night, so.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about climate. Energy independence and climate kind of go together because recently there's been a lot of discussions. A lot of leaders, various federal governments went to Copenhagen, and I don't think much was really agreed upon there. But in the state of Illinois, I go back to coal again because, again, we have these vast amounts of coal in the state of Illinois, and as well as biodiesel and ethanol, both release carbon dioxide.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the million-dollar question is do you believe CO2 is a pollutant, and do you think it needs to be capped and traded or taxed and traded, or do you believe that the science isn't really settled yet and that we still need a lot more work to do? Where are your thoughts at? Where do you think that this helps us, Illinois, fall in terms of tapping its resources that it has?
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe that CO2 is a greenhouse gas. I believe that science is settled. There's no doubt that over the last 100 years, there's been a 1 to 1.5 degree Fahrenheit increase in the temperature in the world. This has been shown from ice core samples that have been taken in the Arctic, and this gives us thousands of years of history. And through analysis of these ice cores, we can see CO2 levels highest that they've ever been in thousands of years over the last century. Now that just happens to coincide with the time that we started using fossil fuels as our primary energy source. And for me, that would be just way too much of a coincidence in the grand scheme of time. You're talking thousands of years. As soon as we implement fossil fuels, suddenly we start seeing these rises in CO2 levels. No one can deny also that the polar ice caps are melting. I think that the argument is how much of an effect is man having on this, and for me, I do believe in that global warming is an issue, and I think it's something that we should err on the side of caution, because we want to leave a beautiful world that we've inherited to our children and grandchildren and future generations of Americans and wherever the people may be built. Because this isn't an Illinois issue, it's not a United States issue, this is a global issue. That being said, I don't support any types of fines on small businesses, on general public. Really is what I'm concerned with is the larger corporations. These are the entities that are really the biggest issue with contributing so much CO2 in the environment. And those are these big companies are the ones that I feel should be regulated, through the federal government.
Let's talk about Thompson. What are your thoughts on moving the Gitmo detainees to Thompson?
Well, like President Obama, Senator Durbin, and Governor